And we're continuing to follow the abortion battle brewing at the state capitol. Yesterday, we spoke to Representative Jim Olson about House Bill 1182, which takes away the licenses of doctors who perform abortions. Today, we're talking about Senate Bill 13, and we have the author of that bill, Senator Joseph Silk, here in studio. Senator, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We appreciate it. So let's get right into it. What is Senate Bill 13, and what are you aiming to do with this?
Okay, so Senate Bill 13 is a equal protection bill. It defines life beginning at the moment of conception, offers those life equal protection under the law, and therefore classifies any intentional killing of unborn children as homicide.
Okay. One of the things that's been talked about a lot with this bill is there are no exceptions. When you say no exceptions, what do you mean no exceptions? Just anything at all?
Right. So a couple deals. I mean, people ask for the rape and incest exception. There is not that because we did want it to be an equal bill. Rape and incest are horrible things, but you don't murder a child because of the crimes of the father and mother. The medical exception there, it's not specifically outlined, but in the bill, the language of the bill, it does not prevent a doctor from performing basic medical triage. It just says a physician needs to exhaust all his resources to treat both lives equally. If he's not able to save both mom and mother, obviously he will not be charged with murder whatsoever.
Okay, I want to pull up this quote from Senate Pro Tem Greg Treat. He said this in the Oklahoman this past week. He said, "I agree with abolishing abortion. If I thought Senate Bill 13 would save a single human life, I would be on board fully. I am still of the mind that it is fatally flawed." What is your response to that?
We've had discussions where he thinks it's fatally flawed is Senator Treat does not believe that the state of Oklahoma has the authority to essentially enact this legislation because of the Roe v. Wade opinion, which we just disagree on that. And I have my basing off of slavery. At one time, the Supreme Court said slaves were private property and had no rights, which was absolutely false, and we rectified that. Same thing with medical marijuana. The U.S. Supreme Court said that states cannot regulate or distribute any type of marijuana. We're doing that with no repercussions. So the federal government is limited, and the Supreme Court offers opinions, and they are not all powerful. And the state of Oklahoma does have the right to do it, and he doesn't believe we do. We just have differing opinions on that.
Is the idea to get this before the Supreme Court?
You know, that's one idea. And so there's some language in the bill. I'm of the opinion that the state needs to just enact the legislation, and the governor needs to uphold the Constitution and basically stop killing unborn children. However, there is a thought that if you were to take this legislation and send it all the way up to the Supreme Court, it would overturn Roe v. Wade. So there's two different ways of thinking, but that is a lot of supporters do want to see Senate Bill 13 actually be the bill that overturns Roe v. Wade.
I wanted to ask you this. Like I said, yesterday we had Representative Olson on the show. He was talking about Senate Bill, or House Bill 1182. Yeah. You're not necessarily a fan of that bill. Why?
No, I'm not. I mean, I view unborn children as humans, just like you and I are. House Bill 1182, you know, it at the most, it takes a doctor's license away for a year, and there's a $500 fine for murdering a human child. That's just unacceptable. The other thing is the state, as long as abortion is legal, the state really can't revoke their license for doing something that's already legal. It's like them revoking our driver's license for not breaking the law at all. So to me, it's not even really an achievable bill.
Okay, let's get to these viewer questions this morning. Like I said, we've had a lot of them come in on our Facebook pages. We appreciate you guys sending them in. We're going to try to get to a couple here. Sandy first says, would you be up for modifying your bill to make it more reasonable so it might pass, or are you just doing this for people's strong reactions?
No, we've already made changes to the bill. There's been several concerns with other legislators, and there's a committee substitute already that I've been working with Chairman McCourtney on. I'm open for making a good bill even better and tweaking it, and we've already done that, and I'm assuming we'll continue to work it out to make it as good as possible.
Let's pull up Christia's question here. So why waste taxpayer money on a bill that is not constitutional? That's Christia's question.
That's a common question you get, and there's really nothing about Senate Bill 13 that is unconstitutional. There's a huge section in that bill that actually specifically points to the Constitution, where we're getting authority from both the state and federal Constitution to come up with the language Senate Bill 13. Most people who say that, they view that Roe v. Wade was a constitutional opinion, which it was not. So it's not the bill that's unconstitutional. It is the practice of abortion and Roe v. Wade that's unconstitutional. So you got to really just kind of come to that understanding.
Kay says, and this is a pretty emotional question here. Do you identify as a female? Are you able to carry a 9-month pregnancy? No. Okay, then how about you go author a bill that can pertain to you and stop playing God? There are a lot of people that say if you're not a woman, how can you make these decisions about a woman's body and what they can do with it?
Right, and I mean, you just have to look at politics. I'm a legislator. I'm not a child, but we write laws and pass laws and vote on laws that pertaining to children, and that's exactly what this bill is. We're talking about a living human being and wanting to protect it from murder. So whether you're a male or female, it doesn't matter whatsoever. You're still trying to just protect innocent children.
Johnny says, and this is a pretty emotional question as well here, and a lot of people talking about this one. You're going to tell a rape victim she has to deliver the baby. You're mixing church and state. What about a 13-year-old incestuous rape victim? She has to deliver as well. You know, people are concerned and say that, you know, rape is such a traumatic act, and the fact that that person would have to carry their baby to full term and raise it, that's a bridge too far for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I mean, we've had that conversation a lot. And really what it comes down to is people are going to have to decide, is an unborn child a living human being that deserves protection, or is it not? So if you believe that a child needs to be murdered when it's conceived in rape, then you're going to have to adjust your standards a whole lot on who deserves protection and what innocent children are allowed to be murdered and which ones aren't. I'm of the opinion you know, again, those are horrible atrocities when they happen. However, it's still a human life, and it still deserves protection.
A couple more questions here. Jerry says, how is the already overwhelmed foster care system preparing for this huge influx of children that this will cause?
That's a huge assumption. That has really no credible basis, saying that there's going to be a huge influx of children. But yeah, I mean, every year we deal with the foster care system and Health Human Services and try to iron out and make that as best a system as possible.
Okay, question number 6 here, and if we can pop that up here on the screen. Beverly says, if God gives everyone free will, why is he playing God? Passing this bill is taking away free will.
I don't believe people should have the free will to murder people. And it doesn't matter if it's an unborn child, a 2-year-old child, or an adult. That is something that murders take place. I think it should be a crime. I think it should be illegal. So I don't believe people should have the free will to choose to kill an innocent human being.
Would there be any kind of system in place that would help out these mothers that, you know, have to take these kids through full term and raise them? Will there be any systems in place, any kind of assistance?
Yeah, they're already there. I had a long conversation about that very thing yesterday, and he was like, well, we need an agency or something to help out. They're already in place. There's faith-based agencies all over the state, and then there's state agencies that are here to help out and assist and provide medical coverage and adoption services. Those systems are already in place, and they just need to be utilized.
There's no worries, though, that with more women having babies and not having those abortions, that those systems will be overwhelmed in any way?
No, not at all.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Senator, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time here on this issue.